Hi, this is Robert Reiss on the CEO Forum, and we're here today with Brent Shafer. How are you, Brent?
Oh, great. Good to be here with you, Robert.
And Brent is the CEO of Philips of North America, and it's a really fascinating story because of the transformation that you recently went through. Talk about what that was like. You became CEO in 2014.
It's been an interesting ride. If you know Philips and you know our background, and most people know something about us, we're a 125-year-old company. Traditionally a conglomerate, started in the lighting business and grew from lighting into some related and unrelated businesses. Part of that was the medical business, which really came around creating X-ray tubes. So if you've ever seen an X-ray tube, it looks like a very large light bulb, and that was the origin and how we got into healthcare. In 2014, I came in really to the North America role with the full portfolio, which had been streamlined from over a 10-year period. We'd gotten out of the semiconductor business, we'd gotten out of TVs, actually, which a lot of people know us for. So we were really focused on consumer products, lighting, and healthcare. And as I entered, we as a company made the decision to really transform ourselves into a health tech company. So really to focus full on, all in on healthcare and health tech, which is, when we speak to that, we really mean our healthcare portfolio, products, services, support, software, plus those consumer products that are closely related. So in the United States, people would know our Sonicare brand for oral health care and Norelco brand, which is really grooming and it is a wellness kind of product. But to exit our lighting business, which was the origin of Philips at 125 years. So really a key decision for us that took a lot of thought, and there's a lot behind that if you'd like to hear more of the why.
Well, let's go first into, yes, what the why was, but then what we want to hear about are the challenges you had with the transformation.
The why behind it is, if you look at lighting, it itself is going through a huge transformation. At the time, we were the largest lighting producer in the world. And if you think about conventional lighting and the shift to LED-based lighting, it's really a fundamentally different business model. Conventional lighting burns out in a relatively short period, so you have a replacement cycle. LED lasts for a very long time. So when you get into LEDs, you really have to think about lighting as a service business, and you have to move very fast. It's a very competitive business. Similarly, if you look at healthcare and what's happening there, the needs are so great. With aging population in the United States, Canada, really mature economies around the world, you have an aging population that has an increased need for healthcare, increased incidence of chronic conditions, so tremendous need. And so the decision was one based really on focus. We felt like as a company we could not focus on these two key areas that required a lot of resources, different kinds of talent, and execute well. So the decision was split off lighting and really focused all in on healthcare and health tech.
It's a big bet.
Huge bet for a 125-year-old company.
So what were the challenges you faced in trying to transform a 125-year-old lighting company into a healthcare company?
Yeah, great question. As you imagine, there's a lot of tradition and a lot of infrastructure in a company that's been built up around a certain business. And so lighting was at the core of our business all around the world. So our infrastructure, the way we did business, the way we dealt with our customers, it was fundamentally based around a lighting model. And so one of the things we had to work through is, how do you put a team in place that can disentangle all these various elements of the business, maintain good focus in the lighting business so that it's high value as it's spun off in an IPO, because it had wonderful opportunities of its own, but you need to do that in a very careful way. At the same time, how do you ensure the right kind of focus you need on the health tech business for the future? So this is attracting people with skills in software, a millennial generation, a whole generation of people that are the right kinds of leaders for the future in that business. And so in a way, it's maintaining these two very different groups of leaders to manage through a two and a half year period of splitting off that business and position ourselves for the future.
This is Robert Reiss on the CEO Forum, where we interview the CEOs who have reinvented the fabric of America. We're here today with Brent Saunders. And Brent, is, and I called you Brent Saunders, Brent Shafer, pardon me. So this is Robert Reiss on the CEO Forum, where we interview the CEOs who have reinvented the fabric of America. We're here today with Brent Shafer, who is the CEO of Philips of North America. We're talking about a transformation. So when you transform a company over 100 years old, you had 17,000 employees. How do you allow the entire culture to cascade down into this new transformation into becoming a healthcare business?
These are great questions. I think one of the things that we've tried to do as we have worked through this transition is to make the mission very clear. We have a lot of businesses that came through acquisition in our healthcare portfolio and in our health tech portfolio. And so one is looking for what's the common ground, what is it that everyone can identify with. And so we've made our mission very explicit, and it's meant to be meaningful when people find it meaningful, and that's to improve the lives of 3 billion people by 2025.
Wow.
And so we try to make that very core in what we do, and I think that it has helped us to manage through a lot of change, because when in question, you kind of revert back to what are we here to do, and that's to improve lives. And that as you go through ups and downs related to this kind of transformation, people, I think, genuinely believe in that and genuinely want to be part of that. I think it's also helped us to attract new talent in a competitive market.
And I want to ask you about that. Is new talent, is it getting people with healthcare backgrounds, or is it more of systems engineers, software? What type of new talent do you look for specifically?
Both. I mean, we need those people with healthcare experience, with healthcare leadership. We need a lot of software skills. I mean, that is absolutely key to where we're going. That is a huge need for us. And things like large account management and project management. I mean, these are common things, and we're competing with many different industries to do that. Mm-hmm. But now in the nature of our business, we're doing in some cases 15-year, 20-year partnerships with large hospital chains. And you have to have people who really know how to come in, implement projects, deliver on shared objectives, and that's a very particular skill set. So we compete with a lot of companies. Part of what we've tried to do is make the culture, as well as compensation and benefits, all those things, but to make the culture something that differentiates us from other places. What
word would you say that defines culture at Philips? If you could think of one word or a phrase.
I think it is a caring culture. The people are. When we do brand research on ourselves, when we go to our key customers and we say, how do you think about us and what makes us different from our competitors in those markets, they will tell us fundamentally, your people are different. And so we put a lot of effort into R&D and technology and developing those offerings, but which of course those are differentiated. But I think our people are very fundamental, and their values, how they think about the work that they do.
How do you get people to care? Is that you've galvanized them all around this, that you're going to reach 3 billion people by 2025? Is it about the mission? Are there little things, unique practices you have? Because getting people to care and have a culture about caring, that's a pretty strong word.
It is. I think, honestly, we were fortunate to have a lot of employees who have been in the company for a long time who come from that kind of background, mm-hmm. who have spent time in healthcare, or who have a very deep concern about patient welfare and consumer well-being. So it's kind of there, but we've made it more pronounced, and we've made a point of talking about it. So when we do town halls and when we do internal communication, we make a point of talking about the impact to patients, what we do, what you do in your role, and how you contribute every day to help improve a patient's life or a consumer's life, and try to make that very real and very vivid. And I think that helps to build the culture.
We've about 1 minute left before break. What are some of the key products and services that you're offering in healthcare?
For us in healthcare, we're the world leader in patient monitoring or connected care. So we have about 275 million lives that we monitor around the world on an annual basis. We're very strong in imaging, especially in the cath lab, number one in the cath lab, where stents are planted, and very much a leadership position there. Ultrasound, clinical informatics, services, oral health care. those are our big categories.
This is Robert Reiss on the CEO Forum, and we're hearing that you can transform your organization even if it's over 100 years old, and you have to have the vision and get everyone on board. We'll be back in a few, and then we're going to hear about some of the clients that they're working with as well. Back in a few. Hi, this is Robert Reiss on the CEO Forum, when we're here today with Brent Shafer, who is the CEO of Philips of North America. So you were talking about that exactly, you monitor 275 million patients as a leader in that, and some of the companies that you work with, for example, I know you do a lot of work with Cleveland Clinic, so you probably work with Toby Cosgrove there as well.
Absolutely.
It's a great organization. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with them.
We've done a lot of work with Cleveland Clinic. We've done a lot of work with key thought leaders across the United States and really around the world. What we try to do is bring solutions to them that help them to deliver better care, better outcomes, more cost efficient. Let me go to an example. This is not the Cleveland Clinic, but is Banner Healthcare in Arizona, one of the big IDN systems, very top-rated care system there. So we did some joint development with them on a project that was really around monitored lives, connected care, and patient monitoring. And it was meant to work with them together to treat patients who have chronic conditions. If you have a chronic condition, you're going to be in and out of a hospital for the rest of your life. And of course, the goal is to minimize those hospital visits for better quality of life, reduce costs, keep you at home with your family and your loved ones. So together with them, we put in place some technology. It was done over about a 3-year period. It was a published study that looked at enabling technology, but also how the care was delivered. And basically what it would do is predict when patients with chronic conditions were going to worsen and need.
It's able to do that, actually?
Yeah, the predictive algorithms basically would predict when the patient's status was going to change so that there could be an intervention, they could stay home, avoid the trip to the hospital.
That couldn't be done in a home healthcare setting, could it?
In these cases, these were home healthcare settings,
really?
But in the home. Right.
That's a pretty significant opportunity for people improving health.
It's been very significant. They published a study with the results, and they saw about a 30% decrease in the cost of delivering care, about a 20% decrease in hospital readmissions. You know, and all of that, of course, results in a much better experience for the patient.
So you're actually improving quality outcomes and clinical outcomes while reducing cost in the overall healthcare, say, which is about $2.7 trillion in the United States.
Absolutely, and that's the goal, to bring solutions like that to
bear. A question, because I know that that Forbes, who in full disclosure I am a writer for, but that you were cited in 2017 most ethical companies. How did that come to be? Because that's something that people really try for, but it's not easy. It's very competitive, and you can't cut corners.
That's a great one. I would say that it comes from the mission, and it comes from the standards that we keep internally. And I think it's a belief system that's there, goes quite deep in the population, and our senior management, I think, is very committed to that. And it was a very nice recognition. We're very proud of that. Of course, want to continue to build on that.
One other I want to ask you about is when you were one of the top 50 most valuable brands. Now, it's hard to achieve that because you were over 100 years old legacy in the lighting business, and then you change a culture of over 17,000 people, move into healthcare. How do you do that and become one of the most valuable brands?
Well, it's a great question. It has a unique twist in the United States. If you contrast Philips brand in the United States with Philips brand in Europe or Japan or even China, many people, you may have the same experience. They sometimes know the Norelco brand better than they know the Philips brand, and it's just the legacy of the brand in the United States. So one of the things we're trying to do is really unify our brand identity and really keep it on the big themes that matter most around healthcare and improving quality of life. And so that's where we're focused, and we're particularly focused on healthcare providers and on our key constituents in the government, because that's a very key component of our business.
I want to ask you some rapid fire questions where I'll say a word and you'll think of a phrase that comes up to you.
Okay.
Leadership.
That's not too rapid on my part, was it?
But that's good, because your first answer might be thoughtfulness, right?
I think that, I think it is a thoughtfulness, ability to engage others, set a direction, and bring them forward, bring them with you.
How about the word digital? What do you think digital means to you? Because here you are, an organization transforming from lighting to healthcare. What does it mean?
It is the future. Certainly it is the future. And so how fast can you get there? How fast can you go? I think that's the implication there.
And one more, and this is going to be right in your sweet spot. What phrase sums up transformation? Here you are, an organization that transformed from a legacy to a whole new industry in healthcare. What's the phrase that sums up success and transformation?
To me, it's focus, because I think it just takes tremendous focus to manage through big transformation projects like this. You just have to be relentless and stay on it. So,
yeah. Are there any mistakes that you learned from in going through the whole transformation that other CEOs might learn from and say, that's really something you have to be careful about to make sure that you oversee that element?
I think there are a few. I mean, I think some of the things that were learnings in that process, that as you're exiting a business or putting focus on a new area of business, you still need to keep the engagement of those who are running the business that is exiting or who are managing the transition. And so there is this need to keep all the constituents engaged as you manage through the transformation process. So if you take your eye off the ball somewhere, or you take one of those groups for granted and think they'll be fine, well, they become demoralized, they lose their way, things start to fall apart. So I'd say that's one learning, is you have to keep the same focus on the businesses that are on the exit path or on the turnaround path as you do on those that are really the growth focus.
That's a pretty profound thought for CEOs to be thinking about.
It's certainly the challenge for all of us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the future. What do you envision the future being for Philips of North America? You've already transformed as an organization over $6 billion, 17,000 employees, from being in the lighting business to being in the healthcare business. Yeah. As we look down, open up that crystal ball a few years out, what would you say it looks like?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. What we've tried to do with our portfolio across healthcare is to be able to play in all the key spaces. So if you think about how healthcare is oriented, we always think about the hospital environment and acute care, and we're very strong in that environment and play there, and we'll continue to invest in that. What we also know with an aging population and the way care is delivered is increasingly the home setting is very important. So being able to play in the home, have solutions in the home for healthcare that improve outcomes and are tied back to a holistic thinking about how healthcare is delivered. That's critical. And then again, the broader topic of wellness. So if you're working prevention and good health in the first place, you can avoid a lot of the chronic conditions, you can avoid a lot of the health issues that plague us. And so around wellness, taking care of yourself, good health, monitoring your health, improving your health. So that is our intent, is to bring together pieces of imaging, connected care, informatics, together with services in unique ways that help solve those problems across the industry.
Brent, a pleasure having you on the CEO Forum.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone there, remember, focus.